for Distant Planet TV. This is the second interview with another Tim, as I've done an interview before with Tim Reaper, and this is Tim Teacuts. Tim Teacuts runs a label called Mind Recordings. Also as well, Tim played at our November party at MOT. I think the first question we really want to know is how you first got into dance music and DJing.
Yeah, I suppose first got into it, I suppose around 1990, 91. I've always been a skateboarder, and just some friends were started listening to some tapes and were buying records with sort of early Prodigy and LFO, etc. on it, and that sort of sparked my love for it, and basically ended up going raving from a young age and getting right into it, which kind of naturally led me on to being interested in DJing and etc. So some friends had some decks, and I ended up getting into that, learning how to mix and getting my own set of decks, and it all kind of went from there really.
What were the first sort of parties that you went to?
Yeah, the first I got taken to the local club from here called Stern's Interdance Night. I got taken at a very young age with some friends. Parents were actually going, and they took us along one night, and then basically started going to other parties around here, some in Brighton at the event, which were Passion, a couple other at the Brighton Centre, along those sort of nights basically.
When you started DJing, what were the record shops that you used to get your records from?
Yeah, there was one in Worthing called Across the Tracks, which was run by Crafty Cuts actually. Well, he wasn't Crafty Cuts at that point, I don't think, but he basically had that shop. And then also another local DJ Quantum, used to work in there as well. And they then went on to open HVR, which was Happy Vibes Records in Brighton. So I used to go in there a lot. And then through that, DJ Quantum and also DJ Rock One used to put on a night in Worthing called Jungle Pressure, which then led on to a Steppers Convention over in Brighton, which I started playing at. They gave me my first sort of booking. That was about 95, I think it was.
DJ Quantum, I believe we've talked about this before, but it had something to do with Dance Floor Studios.
That's right. Yeah, I think Dance Floor Studios was Simon Scutt and a few others that basically used to do all the tape recordings for Stearns, all their nights, which are now sort of pretty famous tapes that you can still buy, and I think they're fetching a pretty penny now. And they also had a studio as well, as obviously where the tapes were done, but where you could go and make tunes and that sort of thing. So after I'd sort of got into the DJing a bit, the production sort of naturally seemed to just kind of come about really.
Were you involved in any events yourself, like putting them on, anything like that?
Yeah, I played at a night also in Worthing actually that was called The Lab. And then I got involved with the guys that were putting that on, and it was a good friend of mine, John Truman, that we used to sort of put that. We did a few nights. We had Chrome play, and back then I was kind of resident DJ, warm-up DJs with DJ Friction and a few others. Right. He was all part of the same sort of scene at that point. It was about sort of 94, 95 when the Jungle Pressure nights started, and they used to pick the likes of Ray Keith would come down. It was quite a small venue, and it used to go off in there. It was such a vibe. And after they had that residency, they then moved to another club in Brighton, and I think it was MC Matrix got involved with them, and they started up Steppers Convention, which was a weekly night, and they had all sorts of lineups. It was Jumpin' Jack Frost, Groove Rider, week in, week out. And they ended up doing the Radio One in a Jungle, sort of a live broadcast with Hype and the Steppers crew, which was DJ Skinny, Rock One, Quantum, and also Raggedy, who is now known as Darrison. There's a set online, you can check it on YouTube, it's wicked. So that used to really pop off, playing alongside all these sort of DJs. It was pretty mad times, But that's, when it all died out, it was a shame, but it just, it's just the way it sort of went, I think.
So I believe you've had quite a history in being involved in production from the early 90s from our conversations. So yeah, tell me a bit about your productions and how you got involved in that.
Yeah, just through links, through Rock One and And Quantum got introduced to a guy called Richard Hellraiser who sort of ran Breakthrough Records, him and the original DJ Vibes, Skip. And I just got invited in to do a studio session, basically. Hellraiser engineered for me, and I just took a load of samples, and, you know, we came out of a couple of tunes. It got pressed onto a white label. There was 50 copies done, I think, but it never actually made it into full production. And then I, you know, consequently went back quite a few times, made quite a few tunes which only got cut onto dub plate, basically. I used to go up to Music House and a couple of other places back then and get some smelly old acetate cut with them, which I've still got a few now kicking around, but crackly as anything.
So it sounds like, yeah, you had quite a active time in sort of early mid-90s with sort of the rave and jungle scene. So I believe you started to kind of dip out of that scene and get a bit more into other styles around that time.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, as I say, I started playing in about 95, and the nights mainly around Worthing that I was playing at, and Brighton, sorry, were kind of going on between, I'd say, about 95 to about 98, 99. And it was in that early jump up phase, really. It was, and then it started to kind of, you know, how the scene did change and started going a bit more all about production and got a bit harder. And the scene just seemed to trickle out around here. The guys that I knew were putting on nights weren't, you know, stopped putting on nights. They lost the deal through the club, etc. So I just found it quite hard to get other gigs back then. You know, it's not as easy as sort of going on social media or writing letters or what have you to the promoters and trying to get to nights. So it all kind of fizzled out, and I still kept my decks and basically just started to practice getting into more like turntablism and scratching along those sort of lines, which then kind of, you know, got me delving more into like hip hop and hip hop culture and about the original breaks of everything and all that aspect of it, which I then went on to start playing out in the early 2000s around Brighton and some gigs in London. And I was also in a hip hop duo with a good friend of mine who used to MC, called Suave Debonair, or Kid Genius at the time, my mate Jay. And we played quite a few festivals through Sicker Studios, like Naz Festival and Boardmasters and Nostock and a few others, which we did for, you know, a good few years, which, you know, and then I got into making the beats, which kind of led me more back into production again, basically. I used to make sort of simple little loops just to scratch over mainly, and did a few sort of ones with MCs would rap on, etc. So
I suppose the sort of dabbling in more the hip hop scene and that sort of whole breakbeat things really helped with your productions over the years, because there's so many breaks out there to use. It's like,
yeah, exactly. It sort of introduces you to loads of them, and you know, on a weird, tedious link, that's how I got to meet Pete Cannon as well through N4 Records, was through hip hop. You know, back in the day, because my friend used to be in a little rap group called Tactical Thinking. Yeah, so it's funny how it all kind of comes back around, really.
So the period that you really embraced the hip hop side of things, tell me a bit more about that. What clubs you played, what events, what DJs you were working with at that time?
Yeah, the hip hop thing. I started studying sort of old turntable videos and just gathering skills, just watching the greats like DJ Craze, etc. You know, trying to hone my skills. and started buying more and more kind of classic golden era hip hop that I'd sort of missed out on because I was buying more jungle at the time. I was listening to stuff, but I kind of just developed a bit more of a love and the sound of the breaks. So I'd go to Rare Kind in Brighton, get on my tunes, and just through there met Connects and played some gigs at Concord 2, supporting the likes of Task Force, KRS-One. That's when I was with Suave Debonair. And also a guy from Canada called Abdominal, supported him at like the Pressure Point, I think it was, in Brighton. Yeah, no, it was really good times. Enjoyed that a lot.
So the release you made with Pete Cannon, Buzzheads, I believe that kind of sparked your interest again into like the modern jungle hardcore.
Yeah. I'd kind of always had that love for it, and especially the old stuff with old tapes. I'd still listen to them, all the time, and I'd have friends come round, and we'd still mix with all the kind of old tunes, the classics from like 92, 93, etc., and earlier, and their arounds. And yeah, seeing Pete put stuff out, I just kind of he gave me a lot of information as to who, like Simon at the Exchange for doing the mastering and the cutting. And at the time, Phil East for, getting the records pressed. So I just decided it was time to go all out. I've been trying for years, and certain circumstances in life, which I had to kind of dip out of the scene and DJing for a couple of years, it gave me the motivation and the drive to kind of really go all in and get the label set up and take it from there, really.
Mind Recordings, amazing. So I remember you reaching out to us with some of the really earliest releases, and they've been a regular feature on our Cool London shows, myself and Louise, and in our DJ sets and promo mixes. So yeah, let's talk a bit about Mind Recordings. So when did that all start up again?
Yeah, I set it up in 2019, I think it was. So it's been going for about 3 years now. Yeah, just basically trying to just put out authentic sounding jungle and hardcore of the sound of that golden era. And then I'm also trying to I've had a few releases out, and then I'm just trying to push other young artists and try and give them a chance to get some tunes out there, which is not always necessarily that easy unless you've got money to put behind a release, for instance. So I've had tunes out from a really talented artist called Disdained, and we've got lots more projects to do together. Shout out to Prince. And then we've had Fendi K on the label, put a couple of tunes out of his. And then recently we've just done a tune with Bristol-based artist Janaway, which we did like a run of dub plates. So, and we've got more plans to release sort of tunes from other artists, but it's just getting it right and wanting it to sound just right. And
so you're about 15 releases in now?
Yeah, I think on the like the catalogue number we're up to 14, but then I've done, I think it's 5 or 6 dub plate releases as well, which have been cut from 1-800 dub plate Planet Wax. And also Chris Iona down at Green King Cuts in Bristol did a run for us for a special record fair that was down in Bristol. So wanted to try and support the local scene down there.
Yeah, I think that was a really good moment when you played at Distant Planet, and I actually managed to play in amongst a load of hardcore, cutting to the chase. And I've been playing that loads on the radio. I really love that tune.
Oh, nice.
Great release.
Yeah, no, cheers. I'm really chuffed with that one. It's that's the one that sort of seems to get the most love, or I get hit up a lot about that tune, which is nice. It's always nice to get good feedback on your music.
Cutting to the chase, 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 cutting to the chase. Cutting to the chase.
So what moments stick out to you most from the label? What are the highlights? What are the tunes that have been firing?
Yeah, there've been lots of highlights. I got really lucky with the first release. That got picked up by Rennie LeVice, and he ended up playing that on his drum and bass show on Radio 1, which was pretty,
Wow.
pretty lucky to get that on the first tune that came out. And then I did wanted to do like a couple of proper like ragga jungle tunes. So got General TK involved on one of the tunes, which is called Gun Talk. And then also Blackout JA featured on another tune, which was called Smoker's Anthem, which was really chuffed about. And I also did like a tribute tune for Stearns, sort of in that kind of early 92 style, and managed to get hold of, I sampled from a tape MC Stompy Don, who was the resident MC up there, and then spoke to him, got permission and everything, and got in touch with Stompy and managed to talk to him, and we stay in touch now. He was always the MC on the tapes or when we'd go there, so it was pretty mad to talk to him now and get him on a tune.
Bring it kind of up to date. And
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Great, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, it's quite a history already. The last couple of years, quite a whirlwind of tunes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think as well that it was easier to get records pressed up when I first set the label up, so you could get a release flipped around in a month or two.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's more like sort of 6 months to a year if you're lucky, and it's releases have just naturally slowed up, I think, for everybody really now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of delays. Big up everybody in there that's waiting for their releases to come out, and it's quite a tough time.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to promote the tunes as well, because you just don't have any idea as to when you're gonna, when to expect it. So you don't want to start pushing it too early and put people off the tune from overhearing it, or or you just drop it on them out of nowhere and hope for the best.
So what have you got in the pipeline with yourself and Mind Recordings in general?
Yeah, well, I've just had a release which dropped a couple of weeks ago. I've done a label collaboration with Pete Cannon's N4. It's 2 tracks of mine, 2 tracks of Pete's, and they've both got separate catalogue numbers, for one for mine and for N4, which I'm really chuffed about. That's just, as I say, that's just come out on vinyl and digital. And I want to shout Danny Uncut as well for his mixing and mastering, getting everything sounding super nice on that. So definitely go check him out, and Swank Out is his other artist name. He's making some wicked tunes. So just going forward, just got some gigs coming up. Going to be in London for the Rave Story with Billy Bunter. Going to have a Mind record stall there in the daytime. And then also Clashmouth at the end of November. You can catch I'll have a stall at that with all the tunes, etc. And then got quite a few gigs coming up over the winter and into the new year.
That's been a great insight into all things Mind Recordings and T-Cuts. Big up, nice one. Thanks for your time today.
Nice one. Thanks for having me.
Make sure you check out the set that T-Cuts played for us at Distant Planet, which is up on the channel from November 2021. For our viewers, where could we find a bit more about Mind Recordings?
You can get the tunes off of my Bandcamp, which is t-cuts.bandcamp.com, or you can find me on most of the social media platforms at DJ T-Cuts. You can also catch me every second Tuesday of the month between 11 and midnight on Subtle FM. Shout to Connor and Rack Records. And just spot me around. I've got quite a few gigs coming up. So if you're interested in booking me, then hit me up.